This is part 3 of wiring up Lugs S14. Today we're going to be starting the custom chassis harness, and that begins with our battery cable. This is raw battery cable. I'll go over the specs in a second, but we're going to turn this into this. So I'm reusing Lugs battery cable that was in the car previously.
So that comes off of his battery right here.
And goes to our first breaker, which is rated for 250 amps. Comes down
all the way into the bay,
and it goes to the alternator. Then I need to create a custom jumper cable from the starter to the alternator. I'll show you guys that in a second because we're going to be making more battery cables for the fusing relay panel.
On top of that, right here is the second breaker, and that's the breaker for the fusing relay panel. That one's rated for 200 amps.
On my S14, I use the same cable, which is this. It's actually welding cable. The amp capacity of it is super high, so that makes it perfect for using it for stuff like this, because usually the amp ratings on wires are super low. It is pure copper, and there are a lot of strands of copper inside of the cable. We have 2 gauge, this is number 2 gauge, and the amp rating at 25 feet is 250 amps, and then it drops off by 50, going to 2, 150, 1, and 75 as you go up by 25 feet. I'm gonna take a picture of the chart and just put it on the screen somewhere, like right here, so you guys can see that and see how good the amp ratings are.
Obviously, when you get it, it's gonna come like this, and our finished product is gonna be looking like this. This is going from the battery to the breaker that is in the front of the car. I apologize for the mess, by the way, guys. I know it's really bad. It's gonna get cleaned up today. That's on our list to do. Right now, I need to make 2 more of these to go from the breaker to the fusing relay panel, and then 1 extra one that's gonna be our jumper from the alternator to the starter. These are the lugs we're gonna be using. You guys can get these at AutoZone. On the package, it'll tell you what gauge wire it's for. So you can see this says for 2 gauge wire. If you have 4 through 6, that's all one size. And then obviously the holes are different sizes for the panel and for the breakers and stuff. This is a crimp tool that we're gonna use to crimp the lugs onto the wire. I'll show you how this works. You can get this on Amazon. I'll put the name of it somewhere on the screen if you wanna search it up, or just I'll have a link in the description. You guys can check it out. We need to measure this to go from that breaker that's inside of the car to the panel. I'm gonna do that right now. Once I have that measured, I'm gonna show you guys how I crimp this stuff on. We're gonna add the wire loom, add the heat shrink. Then we're gonna get those installed, and we're gonna see how it looks, because I wanna start routing everything super neatly. This is the first wire that's gonna get routed or installed really for this entire thing, and there's a ton of wires. So we have to make sure to be super, super neat with this. And then I might knock out the starter today. I don't know, we're gonna see. Hopefully I can. Right now there's a ton of wires on the starter. I need to figure out what all those are going to, and then we can make our jumper cable. Alright, here are the 2 sizes, cut accordingly to fit the fusing relay panel. Now I'm going to show you guys how to install these cable lugs in the end of your battery cable, how to use the tool, all the good stuff. You have your handle, you have this knob right here, which is how you release and basically close the hydraulic valve. Then you have these inserts. So they go into the crimping portion, and on the inserts, it'll tell you the size wire that you should be crimping. The holes on the end of these lugs matter because you don't want to get one that's too big and can't be secured down to wherever you're gonna secure it down to. Because once you crimp them, you're not taking them off. And if you crimp a piece of cable, you're gonna lose that end, you're gonna lose a crimp. And you'll see why, because this is not just squeeze, it's gonna seriously connect this to the cable. What I like to do is set this up, because as you can see right now with it fully open, if I try to set this in here, it just falls through. So I'm gonna close the valve, and I'm gonna start to pump it and slightly close the gap. So now that's just barely being held in there by the pressure, and it's ready to go. So I just need to take my battery cable. I use a scissor. I'll show you how I do it, because it's weird when you get to a size of wire so big you don't have a tool. But you can use a scissor or blade, anything like that. I'll show you what I do. And you don't want to take too much off either. Give it some pressure, and I just rotate this all the way around. So you can see kind of that cut I made, and then I'll just twist this off. So now that the wire's in, you want to hold it as you're pumping, which can be a little bit hard. So I just put this right here, and I apply force, and I pump at the same time. And once it gets going and it's crimped enough where it can hold the wire in, I can let go and just do it by hand. So it's crimped enough where I can let go and do the rest by hand. Just keep going until you got like a decent amount of force on there, and that's pretty good. So right now it's crimped. I don't know if you can see. You're gonna pop open the hydraulic release valve. Okay. And there you go. And you can see how serious that crimp is. It's no joke at all. Now I need to do the other end. I have to do that. Then we're gonna add the loom, add the heat shrink, and then install them.
I'm sweating like crazy, but check this out. These are the finished cables. See, they're on.
These are obviously 2 different sizes because they're going to 2 different places.
So now, this is my old wire loom from when I did the fans on my S14. I'm gonna use this. We have extra somewhere. You can get this on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. Basically, you just feed this over the cable and we're gonna use heat shrink, seal it. And this heat shrink's good because it has adhesive. It's lined with adhesive. Done. If you can see, now I just have to make sure they fit, which hopefully they do.
Hard to see, but that's installed. I don't know if the dash is gonna clear that or not. We'll probably have to do some dash testing.
I think it'll clear, but I'm really not like 100% sure if it will or not. I put the battery cable in as well, so this is right here. Everything's routed nice and neat. Now we can continue. I gotta do the jumper cable from starter to alt. Alright, so I just put the dash in for a test fit. Our battery, positive power in, 2 cables that were sitting super high, clear, which is really good. Underneath, if you can see, our cables all the way up here. What I'm gonna do right now is basically walk around, visually map out underneath the dash the areas that I can run wires and where anything's interfering. There's not a lot of stuff. Luke has pretty much everything on his dash deleted, so that's really good. I'm gonna go around, just make sure that I have space to run the wires where I imagined in my head I wanted to run them. And we'll pull the dash back out and continue. Those are the power wires. It's a little weird because the glass is out. I don't see any pinch points, which is where the dash or anything on the dash would be pinching the wires. So we're pretty much good to just run the harnesses how I envisioned it. So right now, Luke has 4 wires going to the starter, 1 single wire for the starter solenoid that activates it like a relay, battery cable going to the starter, something off the wiring specialties harness going to it, and then also a jumper from that to his alternator. So he's got a lot of stuff going on. I'm gonna pop off the bolt, take it all out, see what needs to be left there, see what needs to go. And we also have to disconnect the original battery cable because he wants that loom, so we gotta loom that up. We're making our jumper right now from the starter to the alternator, hopefully reducing some of the wires on the harness. First things first, gotta pop it off. His battery cable, which pops a freaking 90. This was the wire, it's 10 gauge, and this was charging the whole car. So Luke requested that the big red cable that goes to the alternator be loomed. This is very quick, like fast work. And then this is the jumper cable from the starter to the alternator. Same thing, loomed, heat shrink on the ends, cable lugs, crimped. I'm gonna get these installed, and then we have one last thing to do, and that's gonna be the ECU power that is also coming off of the breaker for the 2 power cables going to the panel. I left this secondary cable just red. First off, I'm out of loom, and this is damn near in the trunk. So I'm just gonna leave it red. I'm sweating because that was the biggest struggle of my life. I'm gonna close the hood real fast.
That's the power to the alt. That's the jumper cable going to the starter.
Quick update for you guys. Before I tell you the update, let me show you real quick what we got done for Luke's S14 so far in this video. So far we have all of the power done. So that is main battery cable from the battery to the alternator, the jumper cable from the alternator to the starter, fuse panel power, which is a battery cable 2 gauge from the battery going to a breaker, splitting into 2, going to each fuse distribution block on the fuse panel. It's routed, which I'll show you right now real quick. That's the first breaker right there. I have it in the trunk as far back as I can get it, so you don't really see it. That's the cable we did not put Loom on, going into this cable, which does have the Loom and all the fancy stuff. This is the second breaker right here, and then you can see that splits off into 2. Those cables come up and go to the fuse and relay panel. I'm gonna also have that red wire right there follow these 2, and that's gonna go to the breaker. That's our ECU power. Basically, that power is the secondary fuse strip. By the way, if you guys wanna see us build that, you wanna follow the whole series, there's 2 more parts ahead of this, as well as technically about 2 to 3 parts ahead of that, which are in a completely separate playlist. And at the end of this video and in the description, I'm gonna have playlists to both. One is strictly wiring, and one is the entire process, which is when we gutted and did all the extra stuff to get the car to this position now. Fuse and relay panel is hard mounted. I need to mount the ECU. I basically have so much stuff to do. If you're watching this far, you guys deserve to know what the update is. I have a Z32 trans. That's gonna be the route for the S14, my S14. And I have to get an adapter kit from MazWorks, but I did find the transmission, and early tomorrow morning, we're going to pick it up, and that's what the next video is going to be. So if you want to see more of my X14, going back to the shop, working on that, haven't seen it in a while, make sure you turn on post notifications so you don't miss that when it comes out. If you guys are liking the wiring series with Luke's car, do me a favor, leave a like. And if you aren't subscribed, you watch this far and you're liking the content, want to see more, subscribe below. Once again, I'll see you in the next one. Peace, and thanks for watching. Bye.